Hello and welcome to another Fantasy Premier League video. My name is Steve and today we're taking a look at what to do with our United and Newcastle assets and how that's going to heavily influence the chip strategy that you wish to employ. Now to timestamp this, I'm recording on Monday at 3 PM, which is Sunday 2 AM UK time. Game week 24 is finished and I'm currently sitting on my 9th consecutive green arrow in a row, which has got to be a PB, but I'll go through that in a little bit more detail at the end of the video when I go through last week's results. So to bring you up to speed with what my plans were leading into the chip usage season, last week I said I'm actually considering removing Shaw myself next week, so no, I don't think it's a bad idea to consider it. The main thing I am wondering is if I want to bring him back soon, and if I will, then I should just hold him through the blank like I had planned. That was game week 25 blank. It all comes down to game week 28 and whether United will blank or play Brighton away. If the Brighton fixture is on, then holding Shaw is the play, I think. But the issue is we won't know whether that fixture is on for sure or not until after the game week 25 deadline. So my plans were to hold both United assets of Rashford and Shaw, as well as both my Newcastle assets of Trippier and Botman. Now, the Trippier and Botman assets are a little bit of an easier hold for me. I really want to hold them through this blank, even though they do blank in 25 and play Man City in game week 26, so it's not ideal, but they play in the big blank in game week 28 and have a very strong chance of doubling in 29. And that fixture in 27 is actually pretty good. So what I did last week was I bought Tarkowski as my only transfer last week, and I had 2 free transfers, so I'm still sitting on 2 free transfers again this week. And the reason I bought Tarkowski in is he allows me to hold Botman through this blank, and to play Tarkowski in game week 26 when Botman would be playing against Man City. Now, that's the main reasons I want to hold the Newcastle assets. Just to read out the rest of my team, for those of you without the visuals, I've got Kepa and net away to Tottenham. I've got Shaw, who's blanking, Tarkowski, who's got the double against Aston Villa at home and Arsenal away. Bueno will be playing against Fulham away and Liverpool away this week. He did get a start last week, and so he looks like he will almost certainly pull in points across this double, even if he maybe not make all the minutes. He only got 61 minutes in the loss to Bournemouth. I've got triple Arsenal, who've got the double away to Leicester and home to Everton, and that's Saka, Odegaard and Nketiah, so I've gone for all the attackers rather than any defenders there. I currently have Haaland and De Bruyne from Man City, but De Bruyne is on the chopping block this week. I'll go into that in a second. Andreas comes in off the bench, who will be playing Wolves at home. And my final man up front is Harry Kane, who is at home to Chelsea in game week 25. Now, what we do this week for the blank and double in game week 25 will actually heavily influence the chip strategy that you're going to wish to employ over the coming game weeks. So if you weren't aware, I mean, you're probably quite aware that there's a blank and double in game week 25. There are some confirmed doubles in 27 for Brentford, Brighton, Crystal Palace and Southampton, although there is a chance that the Brighton and Crystal Palace game may be called off because there is some sort of proposed rail strikes going on over in the UK, so we'll have to keep an eye on that. Game week 28 is a huge blank, and then game week 29 is going to be a huge double. So with all of that on the horizon, we have to have a pretty good idea about how we're going to employ our chips. And this year is a lot more chaotic than other seasons. We've had the World Cup, obviously, which has posed some massive delays and a lot of fixtures that are, the fixture congestion is going to get a lot tighter. We've also had other random fixtures that have been called off throughout the season. So the list of fixtures that still need to be scheduled in for this season is quite long. So there's going to be more double game weeks and bigger double game weeks than in seasons previous. And so that's why I've called this video a bit more of an advanced chip strategy guide. Now, in my thoughts on how best to use the chips, well, first of all, the chip mistakes I think that most managers, well, a lot of managers make quite commonly is they will use a free hit chip in a sort of reactionary usage. So some blank will come along and their team is just not set up for it at all, and so they'll just react and use the free hit chip to obviously put out as close to a full 11 as possible, or actually even using the free hit in any blank I think is usually a mistake. The bench boost chip also is probably the most loathed chip in FPL, and that is because it is one of the hardest chips to get right, and it requires quite a lot of planning to get it done correctly. Now, if you have an epic FPL season, the ultimate way of using the chips would be when you use a free hit, that you use it in a big double, and you get about 11 doublers onto the pitch with one safe bench spot member in case someone gets injured in a warm-up somewhere. That would probably get you the highest net gain in terms of points for the free hit chip. So aim for a game week where you get 11 doublers out. This is ultimate, obviously. Getting 11 doublers out is very hard, and it might actually be better to get some single game week players in, depending on what the fixture schedule is that lines up. But if you have a very strong 11 doublers plus a safe bench spot, you'll probably get the very most out of that chip. For the bench boost, what you're aiming for is the best outcome would be about 20 to 24 points plus from your 4 cheapest players in your team. Now, a lot of managers will be quite happy with 16, and 16 is pretty much what you should aim for with your bench boost chip, because if you play your bench boost chip in a double and all 4 of your bench members are doubling and they all score 2 points each, that's 16 points right there. So if you plan it well enough, you should get just 16 points from your bench for them all just turning up and making it to 60 minutes in the match, not hitting yellow cards and whatever else. Now, the wild cards and triple captains I won't really comment on too much, apart from the fact that one of the wild cards and the wild card that we have remaining is best used typically when you tie it in with your bench boost chip. Now, different thoughts vary out there from manager to manager on how best to do this. My particular philosophy is ideally you want to use your wild card after a bench boost. So you stack your team with a whole bunch of really good players on your bench over a couple of game weeks, getting them in as the schedule dictates, and then wildcarding out so that you don't have a massive amount of funds on your bench to carry over multiple game weeks. Now, the other way to use your wildcard is to wildcard the week just before you bench boost, and to absolutely stack your bench so you've got a really good bench boost chip lined up. However, you will have to then obviously carry, without taking hits or whatever, you'll have to carry some of those funds on your bench for a couple of game weeks which may or may not be optimal depending on how the schedule lines up. And because this year we've got, a massive blank game week in game week 28 just before a really big double in game week 29. I mean, each season is different, and you'll obviously have to balance it out as best you can given your teams. Now, the way that I choose which weeks I'm going to use which chip heavily depends on which week I choose to bench boost. So, because we're typically trying to tie a wildcard in with a bench boost, we have to identify what's the best week to bench boost. Should I be wildcarding before that week or after the week? Do I need to be using a free hit somewhere else to get by in a different week to set this bench boost up properly? And those are the kinds of thoughts that I would have in the back of my mind. So we asked the question, when is the best potential bench boost week this year? And unfortunately, we don't know. And we won't have this information before the game week 25 deadline. And so what this means for me is we need to plan to get through game week 25 the blanks, and the game week 28 blank without using any chips, while also allowing ourselves the best shot at optimizing game week 29's huge double, which we won't know until a couple of game weeks later. Now, just before I go into the transfer planner to explain how this is going to happen, actually go through the moves, I should mention that Price and Andy over at Burning Questions did a really good coverage of all the different game weeks that are coming up, which chips you could use in which weeks. They did a really good helicopter view to give you an idea of all the different options out there. For my team, I'm focusing in more on one of those specific options, and so I won't go through all the stuff they've gone through. I just recommend going and checking out that podcast because it was pretty good. Right, so this is my team at the moment without any trades. I've got 2 free transfers and 0.3 million in the bank. My current plan is to sell KDB this week and bring in Salah, which you'll see on screen. Salah in this week is mostly a play to block the points that Salah could go and haul. And Salah will actually only be a 1-week hold in my team most likely. Now, I'm not 100% sold on Salah yet, and the reason for that is there is another play that I could make, but it won't make sense until I go through a couple of weeks into the future and we come back to game week 25 so you can see exactly what the difference between buying Salah this week is and only using a 1 free transfer, or potentially not buying Salah and using 2 free transfers this week. So there's a couple of options there. But to start with, my plan is to play with 10 playing players. So Shaw, Rashford, Botman and Trippier all without games and just holding them through the blank. I've got 1, 2, 3, 6 players doubling. So Tarkowski, Bueno, Salah all doubling, and my triple Arsenal will all double in this game week 25. So I've effectively got 15 players playing through this double and blank. So I'm not too worried about that, even though I may have this spot here of Shaw with no game this week, but that might change, so we'll just step forward. Into game week 26, I'll have 2 free transfers again, but here what I have done is sold sold Salah to buy McAllister, which has given me 7.3 million in the bank. The reason for this is Salah is playing Manchester United that week. I will be on 2 free transfers, and so I don't necessarily want to burn a transfer. And the reason that I'm buying McAllister is there's a couple of reasons. Lallana is actually injured in Brighton, and he's out for a very long time. And McAllister has been playing in the 10 or in the attacking midfield position behind the striker. He's on penalties, so he's a lot closer to goal now because he has been playing in central defensive midfield. So he's a lot closer to goal. He has been taking a lot more shots, and he is on penalties. And the reason that I'm looking to buy him in game week 26 is because he doubles in game week 27. Now, before we go through game week 27, back in game week 26, the team lines up a little bit. Well, it's a bit of a tricky week for this team. Now, I've got Kepa in net, who's at home to Leeds, which is an okay fixture. I've held Shaw through the blank, which means I will have to play him away to Liverpool. So that's not a great fixture for Luke Shaw, and I may potentially be selling him in this week as well. There are a couple of options that I'll be looking at there, but let's just say that we don't do that. We'll have Shaw away to Liverpool with Rashford as well. Trippier is away to Man City, so again, this is not an ideal fixture. And as I mentioned earlier, I've got Botman on the bench because I bought Tarkowski last week to ensure that I could put Botman on the bench, as Everton are away to Nottingham Forest, so that's a pretty good fixture. They might not get the clean sheet, but it's about as best as we can hope for. My triple Arsenal are all at home to Bournemouth, so that's a great fixture. McAllister, who's just come in, is at home to West Ham, which is a good fixture. Like I said, Rashford is away to Liverpool. Haaland is at home to Newcastle, which is an okay fixture. Bruno Guimaraes will be back for Newcastle by then, and so it'll be a bit more of a strong Newcastle team that they will go up against. And Harry Kane is away to Wolves. So the main problems here is Trippier and Shaw in defence, playing against Man City and Liverpool. And that's probably it. I'm more than happy to play Rashford given the form he's in against Liverpool away. I've also got Andreas on the bench away to Brentford, and the other defender is Bueno, whose minutes are not quite assured, and he is at home to Tottenham. So I'd probably play Trippier and Shaw over Bueno. Now if we step forward to game week 27, this is why I wanted to hold both of the Newcastle defenders. So now we've got Kepa in net away to Leicester. Luke Shaw is at home to Southampton. Great game. Both Newcastle defenders are at home to Wolves. Great game. Rashford's at home to Southampton. Great game. This is again why we're holding Rashford through. McAllister, that we've bought in the week prior, should have a double if there's no train strikes. Away to Leeds and at home to Crystal Palace. That's a really good double. My triple Arsenal attack are all away to Fulham, so that's actually a pretty decent game. Haaland is away to Crystal Palace, and Harry Kane is at home to Nottingham Forest. So Kane, I do want to actually hold through most of these fixtures. On the bench we've got Andreas, home to Arsenal, not a great game. Tarkowski goes to the bench. He is at home to Brentford, which may or may not be an okay game, and Bueno is away to Newcastle. But now the tricky game week comes in, and the only way I could do this was to actually take a screenshot of the team and then bring out a marker and actually show what the blank is going to look like. So the confirmed teams that are definitely playing in game week 28 is Arsenal, Chelsea, Newcastle, Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton and Nottingham Forest. Everyone else is either very likely to blank or pretty likely to blank. And what I've done is I've highlighted these on screen. So I put the three expensive assets on the bench. So Kane, Haaland and Rashford, all pretty much without games. Luke Shaw is still in the team, but he's got a big red X through him because he won't be playing. We've got a big red X through McAllister, who we've only bought in for that double, well, 2 game weeks, which was game weeks 26 and the double in 27. He is unlikely to play against Manchester United. Now, remember, some of these games might actually, like, football results can go sometimes not to the favourite team, and so some of these players might play. We then have Bueno at home to Leeds, who might blank. There's an okay chance that he'll blank, and Andreas, who's away to Liverpool, with an okay chance of blanking. Now this leaves me with my 3 Arsenal attackers, all at home to Crystal Palace, so that's a great game. I've again got the double Newcastle defence, who are away to Nottingham Forest, so this is again why I want to hold Newcastle through the blank in game week 25. Tarkowski, who we bought and is pretty much nailed on, has a game, but it is away to Chelsea, so it's not ideal, but at least he's got a fixture. And Chelsea, I've got Kepa in net, who is at home to Everton, which is actually a pretty good game for my goalkeeper. So without any further transfers, I would be playing with 7 players in this blank in game week 28. Now for the remaining spots in game week 28 of what we could do, I kind of broke the teams that we definitely know are playing, because these are the only decisions that we can really make right now. Any other decisions will be speculative until we actually know which fixtures are on and off. And so I put down which teams do I really want with decent attackers out of all the teams that are playing, and the only team that I can think of is Arsenal. Maybe Chelsea, if Chelsea have somehow pulled their act together by then. Newcastle, I don't really want their attack. Aston Villa, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton, Nottingham Forest, not so much. So for my Kane, Haaland, Rashford, Andreas and McAllister spots, if they all blank, I've got to pick some attackers from these teams somehow. And to be honest, it's not great picking in terms of attackers. For defence, the teams that I would like to invest in would be Arsenal, Chelsea and Newcastle. Chelsea and Newcastle are pretty decent defences. The rest of them are pretty hit and hope, maybe for a 1 week punt, depending on the opponent that they're playing against. So Aston Villa is at home to Bournemouth. This is why I've got Aston Villa highlighted in orange. We may go and buy someone from Aston Villa, maybe like a Mings or someone like that. Obviously Bournemouth are away to Aston Villa. Chelsea is playing Everton at home. Crystal Palace is away to Arsenal, so we don't really want any defenders from Crystal Palace. Everton is away to Chelsea, so we don't really want any defenders from Everton. Newcastle is playing Nottingham Forest away. Like I said, we want to load up potentially on Newcastle defenders, and obviously Nottingham Forest playing Newcastle. So in this big blank in game week 28, I think we could probably get away with triple Arsenal attack, double Newcastle or triple Newcastle defence, 1 or 2 Chelsea defenders, and the rest of them are just really 1 week punts as to whether or not Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, Everton or Villa managed to pull anything off in that blank game week. And then straight after that blank is the big double in game week 29. And this is where the likes of Newcastle and Man United both have a very decent chance at doubling. Even though they do play each other in the first game, there is a big chance that they both double in 29. So again, holding on to Newcastle and United assets through game week 25 does have future benefits down the road. The other potential ones that we might want to invest in are Brentford and Brigthon, with a good chance at doubling in 29, and Liverpool. But part of their double is they have to play Man City away if they do double in 29. And the rest of them are either less likely to double or their fixtures probably aren't as great. So that kind of gives an idea of why in the last couple of videos I've been explaining why I want to hold these United and Newcastle assets through the blank in 25. But what I should go through is the alternative options this week and how that kind of affects those future moves. And so if we go back to game week 25, Luke Shaw would probably be the main one on the chopping block, but I would probably want him back a little bit later. Definitely want him back if he doesn't end up blanking in game week 28. So if we do sell Shaw this week, which we can do, we need to make sure that we do count the fact that we will have to probably buy him back in a future game week. And so if we sell him this week, it's going to cost us 4 points in the future. That's the way I'm looking at it. And the reason I go to 4 points is because when you take a hit, it's 4 points for that extra trade, and most managers take hits and doubles and blanks to fill up their teams. And so that will probably happen again in future. So the other alternative option here is a lot of people are looking at getting, say, Trent Alexander-Arnold, right? So if we chuck in Trent here to have another player doubling this week, Crystal Palace away, Wolves at home. Liverpool haven't been amazing defensively, and so I don't know how happy I would be investing in their defence. But as you can see, I'm completely priced out of this move because I'm short by 2 million in the bank. But let's just say that I can afford it, and we step forward. Alexander-Arnold then plays Manchester United at home, so that's not a great game for him. Step forward, they play Bournemouth away, which is an okay fixture in 27. And then in 28, Liverpool could blank. They're not as likely to blank, but there is a strong possibility that they do blank in 28. So if we sell Shaw this week for Alexander-Arnold, we'll probably want Shaw back, maybe not before game week 28, but we'll probably have to deal with Alexander-Arnold anyway in a future game week. And so he's also going to be a very short-term hold. So if I do spend both my free transfers this week on somehow getting Alexander-Arnold in, like buying Gakpo instead of Salah in order to have the funds, then I'm going to have to deal with Alexander-Arnold again in the future. What would be more ideal is instead of buying Alexander-Arnold, would be buying someone like James. Short leg. And the reason for that is not because James has a great game this week. He's away to Tottenham. But, well, too many changes for the transfer planner. But if we move forward to game week 26, he's at home to Leeds, which is a pretty good fixture. It's now gonna away to Leicester in game week 27. They definitely play in game week 28, and it's at home to Everton, so that'll be another great transfer. James would also be, lined up for this future game week, and we'd have one more player locked into the squad. And then in game week 29, they do have a smaller chance of doubling. Their first fixture is against Aston Villa, and the double would be against Liverpool at home. And so, hey, it's still a double. It's not ideal to be playing against Liverpool, but doubles are good, right? Now, of course, the problem with this is I don't actually have enough money to make this move either, because I'm 0.5 million short. And so if I just leave James this week, this is how I've come to a roundabout way of probably holding Shaw through this, is because I can bring in Salah this week for his double. I'm priced out of both James and Alexander-Arnold. Instead of buying some other weak defender that I probably don't want long term and I just want this week, if I do that, that's just going to invoke me having to get rid of him again in game week 26 or 27 for that game week 28 blank, and to set up for game week 29. Whereas what I could do is just get Salah this week, hold Shaw through the blank, if I want to, the following week when I downgrade McAllister, when I downgrade Salah to McAllister, I will have more than enough funds to upgrade Shaw to James if I wanted. But I could bench Shaw and upgrade Bueno to James and have James for that run. And that might be the better overall play. And the reason for that is, like I said, I am trying to build for a bench boost where I've got a lot of value on my bench. And so holding Shaw means that my bench gets a bit more stacked. I upgrade Bueno to James. I then still have... how much will I be left with? 5.2 million to upgrade my bench for a future double, or to upgrade somewhere else in my squad, or to move some players around to make a bench boost much more viable in one of those big doubles. Now, Ward will obviously be the main... a bench boost chip actually comes down to how good your second goalkeeper is. It's really important to have a really good second goalkeeper. Last year I think I went with Nick Pope in a double, and he came through with like 18 or 20 points on his own, which is basically what I was aiming for the whole, across the bench for that 20 points. And don't underestimate your benched goalkeeper member. But without knowing what's exactly happening in Game Week 29 yet, holding Shaw through Game Week 25 blank and then downgrading the Salah or KDB in midfield to a McAllister does provide me a lot of funds to spruce up my bench, jump on some doubles in the doubles in 27. Could even potentially jump on another doubling team in 27 if it lines up that team will also double in 29. And by the time Game Week 29 rolls around, I could be in a position where I actually bench boost straight after a blank game week and not having had to wildcard in order to set this up, and not having to take any hits on the run through. So we save every hit is a -4, so if you take a hit a week, you're already down 12 points. So you want to try to limit your hits through this period. But that is the idea of how to potentially optimize for Game Week 29's big double. Now, this all like I said right back at the beginning of the video, this all comes down to what we do this week and who we buy. Now, I'm about 90% certain that I'm probably just going to spend one transfer this week and upgrade KDB to Salah. It is Champions League season, and so I'm a little bit wary of Kevin De Bruyne's minutes. He's got a great fixture away to Bournemouth, where he could go absolutely mad, but also he could quite as easily get benched, and Salah could go absolutely mad, which will massively affect my rank this week. And so bringing in Salah seems like the logical no-brainer move to make, even though Liverpool haven't been setting the world alight so far this season. Now, in terms of Liverpool assets, I do have a couple of very quick notes. I made some notes before Game Week 24 kicked off, and I said in last week's video that I'll be keeping a close eye on how Liverpool deal with the best defence in the league this week, as they were playing Newcastle. If they manage to generate enough opportunities against Newcastle at St James's Park, then I'll be quite happy jumping on an attacking asset in Game Week 25. Gakpo will be high on the eye test agenda, along with Salah. And I also said Jota and Firmino should be back in Game Week 24. How will they affect Gakpo and Nunez? And what happened in Game Week 24 was Gakpo and Nunez were both subbed off at the 58-minute mark for Jota and Firmino, respectively. Now, Nunez has also picked up a bit of a shoulder knock. so he is a little bit of a doubt for the double. So, given Gakpo and Nunez's minutes aren't assured, and that if I do go for one of these options, it will probably be part of a two-pronged Liverpool attack that will effectively be shooting myself in the foot for those coming game weeks, as I've just stepped through in the transfer planner. And so I don't think I will be buying Gakpo, Nunez, or Trent Alexander-Arnold, or Robertson, for this double, given what has just happened in game week 24. Now, Liverpool did look a lot better. They were already up 2-0. If you didn't catch the game, they were up 2-0 before Nick Pope got sent off. So it was about the 22nd mark that Nick Pope got sent off. It was already 2-0 at the time. So Newcastle had to play about 70-odd or 68 minutes, 70-odd minutes with 10 men. Newcastle did manage to generate quite a lot of dangerous attacking opportunities with only 10 men, so be quite wary of investing too heavily in the Liverpool defence. Also, Liverpool do play Real Madrid in the Champions League this week. It's actually Wednesday morning 9 AM New Zealand time, which is Tuesday 8 PM in the UK. So definitely, if you're buying any Liverpool assets, wait until after Tuesday to make sure that none of them are injured, or anything else has come out of that Liverpool game. And yeah, definitely make sure you get in front of a transfer planner to plan out how you're going to deal with the upcoming double in 27, blank in 28, and potentially big double in game week 29. To quickly go through my game week 24 score. So the league tables are they updated yet? Still updating. I have checked livefpl.net. I am on my 9th consecutive green arrow in a row. So way back in game week 15 was my last red. We were well down the leaderboard at that point. But we've made a steady increase across the last 9 game weeks, which is great. The main reason I think that I actually ended up with a green arrow this week was the buy of Tarkowski. He was my only transfer last week. I upgraded Patterson to Tarkowski because although Patterson was almost back to fitness, it was highly unlikely that he was going to be available for the double, which was one of the reasons that I was buying him, but also as coverage to be able to bench Botman in game week 26. And so I just decided, let's go with Tarkowski. They've got a pretty decent game where he could come away with a clean sheet. He did in fact come away with a clean sheet and the extra 2 bonus points, which was awesome. Luke Shaw came away with 6 points, very lucky to get a clean sheet this week. De Gea saved 2 amazing one-on-ones. They should have definitely conceded in this game if it was not for De Gea. Apart from that though, once United are looking a lot better, Rashford, holy hell, he is just a man on form. He's currently on 24 goals for the season. That's phenomenal. It looks like it hasn't been updated yet. Yeah, 24 goals in this. I mean, 20 goals in a season is really good going. We're only at game week 24, and he's already on 24 goals. He is going absolutely nowhere from my squad. Bruno Fernandes is one of the main reasons that my green arrow wasn't as big as what it was. I was actually up 200k places, 200 and something places, with the Man United and Spurs fixtures before they were to be played today. But Bruno Fernandes ate into a bit of that, and I only ended up about 100 and something thousand places at the end of it all. Haaland captain fail. It's rough. They should have actually... Nottingham Forest as well. I just don't. Yeah, Pep will be pretty mad. That first and second between Arsenal and Man City week to week is just absolute chaos at the moment. Kane came away with a cheeky assist. Odegaard and Saka. Odegaard missed an absolute sitter in the game. I don't know how he scuffed it. It was on his strong foot too. He should have come away with some more points. And Kedia too. There was one cross in where he was actually offside, but he headed it and it went straight onto the crossbar. If he was onside, it was a great opportunity. And there was another one later in the match which he probably should have sunk. A little bit frustrating, but on the whole, it's looking pretty good. So I came away with 59 points. The average was 44, and we've snuck inside the top million, sitting at 940k overall. The Second Chance League started in game week 17, which is the global league that FPL instantiated this year with the unlimited transfers in game week 17. I'm actually coming 220k since that reset, so it's just going to show how much I actually needed those unlimited transfers in game week 17 by the looks of things. But that's it for today's video. If you did happen to make it this far through the video, please do give it a like. And if you are new around here, hit that big red subscribe button and the bell notification to be the bell icon to be notified about all FPL content coming your way. And until next time, I'll catch you again shortly. Cheers.